Hello guys, this is School Design here, and today I will show you the free plugins that has been created for the people who learn from my courses. As we know, a lot of function is still missing in the Sketchup. This is why the Engineering ToolBox has been created. Uh, in some of the features are useful for the surface modeling, some of them are useful for the everyday work. So let we start with the video to see what is included in this tab. The first one is quickly switching between units. This is definitely something. Sometimes such work where we either forgot or simply where you have to additionally go into settings and switch units. And this moment we can quickly switch units with this plugin. For example, we select meters and there is something called snapping, which means we choose snapping, how often our cursor should move here, and I will demonstrate it maybe later. But next we will go to another options. It's something like creating a grid. We surely all know a program like AutoCAD. It is true that it is for 2D drawing, but sometimes we use the grid, and this is what always needed for SketchUp. That's why now we can create the grid. First of all, you have to go inside this plugin, click on it, and we choose what the size of a single square will be set. We also have the unit set to meters, so a single square will be here 1 per 1 meter. As for the whole thing, the length we would like to be 100 meters, and we click OK, and now we have a grid already created. A grid that we can use for modeling. There is also the option to quick switch between the view. This is of course also here in the option to switch. However, it is much easier to just have it directly on the icon. So now we can switch between perspective and normal view. Now, if we want to draw, for example, some elements, it will be much easier for us to use these grids here. And what is more, you can see that snapping is also working. Now, if we wanted, for example, exact 2 or 3 meters, we don't have to type it with the keyboard anymore, but we can use the grid. Additionally, I mentioned that we also have the snapping set to 1 meter. So this means that if we choose, for example, that we want to draw our rectangle or some solid somewhere, see that now it is jumps much easier every meter. You can even see if here is how it's look like. We have the jump set to every meter, so it will also be much easier for us to do this. In a situation if we want to change to 2 meters, we need to go back to the plugins. You can already see that it jumps every 2 squares now, so it will be much easier if it comes to create these solids with the grid and the snapping. Probably this will be very useful, especially if you draw 2D drawing, so you don't need to go and look for some options. You only use this grid. Okay, it is very useful to have this view tab so that we can switch between our views here. So it will be also very useful, especially if we use the grid. And of course, this is perspective view, will also be useful here to switch between the view. So we can use the grid to draw the next elements. Okay, and next plugin. We have a typical situation here. We have a box and surface. Of course, our box must be a component. This is necessary condition. And what you would like to cut it now using this surface. The condition is also that the surface in this situation must be completely straight, meaning it must be created from a straight line. We select both elements and we click here on our saw, which means cut, and the elements is cut off. If we delete the surface, then of course we have a hole here that we can do something more with it. Which part is cut off? The smaller one, of course. It is assumed that that usually we want to quickly cut something, so the larger must stay. If we move our cutting surface to this side, for example, and we click cut, then of course the smaller part will be again removed. Now there is another scenario that is cutting with a curved surface here. We have curved surface. Similarly, we have a component. We select both and we clicked, and now Sketchup asks which part it should keep, whether the large one or the smaller one. We select that the large one just stay. We can remove the cutting tool. If we select that we want the smaller one, then it's known that the other part will be completely removed here. The third option, as you can see, is cutting with the removal of the tool itself. So at this point we select the elements, we click OK. We want the large part to stay. We click OK, and it has already been cut right away with our surface selected. This is a function called split, or sometimes trim in other programs, so it depends which one you use. It works in a very similar way. We move on, we select the smaller parts, and the smaller element is immediately cut here by our surfaces. The next function is so-called intersection, because as we know, there may be a need for use to create just the line of intersection between two elements, between our solid elements or surface. Then we select everything, we click here on the intersection, we can remove the tool. However, the intersection itself, meaning this cut, has already appeared on the elements, on our components, of course. But there may be also be a situation with another way. This is why there is a second intersection here marked with the 3 squares. This means that it is an intersection treated as a component. So we can do something with this intersection later because it is as separated elements. So you can use some additional tool or function to do something with this intersection in the next step. The next function is so-called copy-paste in place. This is something like if we, for example, we select an element, and normally when we press Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V, Sketchup asks where to put it. However, when selecting this function, the given element is pasted immediately. We don't have to select the place again here, and sometimes there can be a problem with hitting it in the correct place. This function is normally also located here. There can be also a switch from these options, but it is easier to have it as an icon on the Engineering ToolBox. Now the next function is 2 options for creating tangent curves to existing edges, and normally it is very hard to do in Sketchup. The first example is that we have 2 straight lines here. They are somewhere in this place, and we would like to make a connection now with one curved line that will give us a smooth transition. The first function is used for this, which is created G1 tangency. G1 because SketchUp allows for G1. G2, G3, unfortunately, we need to use another most specific software for surfacing. However, G1 in SketchUp is completely sufficient. We select this 2 straight line, of course. we run the function, and first of all we have the ability to choose how big this tangency should be, and of course the number of segments. We click on the curve and we have a very nice curve made of 16 segments here, which you can even see, because Sketchup is mainly engine is based on lines and everything is created using the lines. Here you can also see that we have this segment. The transition is also very smooth. If we select these lines and choose more segments, 36, then it is known that this curve will have more of these individual lines, and it will seem that it is more slender here. You should remember not to overdo it, because then it is known that it will be hard to work with this line later, because there is a lot of segments and modify with another plugins. Okay, now we will change the tangency, meaning we want this tangency to hold. So you can see that our lines go and follows our direction all the time. And this radius is only made much later, because we have different tangencies. So depending on how much you need the tangency, you have the options to manipulate with these functions. The second function, of course, also works, but now it is written for curves. If we already have curves and we select the first one, a message will appear that we have to select two lines. Next, we select two curves, banded curves. Here we must use the second options, and meaning we first choose the tangency and similarly the segments. And as you can see, based on the same principle, this curve was created here with very smooth transition between two selected edges. Let's give it, for example, 128 and 3. We click and see what a very nice curve we got already. It's called the tangency also very well. So now the next function, we will select two curves. If we choose to make a curve from a straight line, there will be a message that it won't work. We have to choose the second one, and we will do the same between the straight lines. We have those curves made, and now I would like to make a surface between those elements. We have two options. The first one is make a loft surface. We choose how many segments this surface should be made of. So the curves will be divided into the same number of segments, and we have the surface made. We can reverse the surfaces, and they are nicely made of 20 segments. But if we zoom in, then we will see that they will not perfectly hold these curves that we created, because the curve is composed of a different number of segments. This option is made because it's easier to manipulate the surface later and use it. In SketchUp, it is easier to manipulate with elements that are made from not so many segments, not from so many lines. But there we have the second options, which is called multi-sections, and this will also create the surfaces between the lines, but now it's perfectly stick on both our selected curves, but of course it will be harder to manipulate with this surface later on. Because there might be already some larger curvature kept here, so we have these two options, two possibilities for creating the surfaces. I think that both of them should be enough, and depends from the situation, we can use one of those. Then I strongly encourage using lofted surface because, as I mentioned, it will be easier to manipulate. The next option is the field, meaning filling the distance between gaps. This is very often when SketchUp didn't automatically do the surface. So now we can create the edges and fill between the selected elements. We select in the same way here also the curves. We see that they don't even lie on the same area, and we have a nice filling done here, as you can see. So also very useful function. Another function is a mirror. It's very useful, especially if we are surface modeling, if sometimes like creating a car, for example, we only model one part. So we create some elements, for example, we make components of it, we select components and the reflection surfaces. We click on this mirror and we can hide our reflection surfaces. And now if we model here, then of course also appear on the mirror elements. Well, this is quite useful, especially if you, for example, are modeling a car or something organic part. It is often useful for it to appear on both sides because it will be finally the same. If, of course, we move our mirror surface, automatically also the model being reflected with the new distance. So it will be automatically updated every time. The next plugin will serve us to move verticals. The standards tool that is in SketchUp, if we select, for example, the point, we can move it along the XYZ axis only, but we cannot slide it. Unfortunately, this is impossible in SketchUp. So this is why we have additional function if we wanted to slide only on existing line without modify the surface itself. It is very difficult or particularly impossible. So now we have the options to do that with this plugin. So when we turn on the plugins, we see all the points. These points appear in all our elements, not only the selected surfaces. And now we select, for example, this one point. A red line appear, indicated that there are sort of movements. And now we can slide this point only on existing lines. Then move these points without change the surfaces, so which is very useful. So it is a very common problem in SketchUp. The second options work in the same way, but now we can select a couple of points. Select them and then move them by sliding. Thanks to having two options, sometimes we avoid situation where by accident 2 points are selected and we move 2 at once, but we plan to do it only with the 1 point. The next feature is edge filtering. We have two situations, two scenarios here, a regular box and the second one as a component. And now I would like to quickly select all the edges that are in the direction of my red axis. Normally it is almost impossible to do this in SketchUp, which is why this plugin was created. I select all the surfaces or the elements I'm interested in. I click on the plugin and choose that I'm interested in all edges along the red axis. I add some tolerance. By default it is 5. You can decrease it or increase it. And I choose the coordinate system, axis system. We have two types. The first one is the global, meaning the one that is on the 0 axis, while the local, it applies only and only to components. I select global and click OK, and I immediately have all the edges selected that are in the direction of the red axis. If I want it in the direction of the green one, it's the same. I have all of them selected in direction of a green. However, if I wanted to select all in the direction of the red axis plus those that are at the angle, well, first of all, I would have to measure and it's give me around 54. So I select the box. I mark here that I'm interested in everything up to 55, red axis, global, and OK. And I also have all these edges selected along with this line here. If I go into the components, we will see that my component has those axes facing in a different way. The red one are in the direction, so I would like to select all the line edges along the red axis. I select the elements, the plugin, I mark the red, tolerance 5, and at this moment I choose the local system. And I have them selected. Well, only those are in the direction of the red axis. If I want it in direction of the green one, similarly I mark green, local, OK. And I have all of them selected in the direction of them. The next, copy along path with normal, meaning it will always be copied in the direction normal to the path. This is such a frequently used function which is also missing in Sketchup. The most important thing is to properly set in the components our axis in place and direction. The red one is important here because it directs which direction the component will be set to our path. We select the components and the path, we choose these functions, we choose the distance, how often the element should appear. Yellow elements symbolizing our objects appear here. And using the control on the keyboard, we can change the direction. And we click OK. And automatically, as you can see, all elements are directed here in the normal direction to this path we choose, which is also very useful function in SketchUp. Boundary. Now we have another options, boundary edges. If, for example, in this situation we will have a lot of edges and we would like to select it, sometimes the surfaces might be selected that we choose only one edges. We click on boundary loop. We choose the tolerance here regarding the degrees between individual edges. And let's select, for example, 89. And then everything is automatically selected, meaning the whole border. However, if we enter more than 90 degree, well, the bottom also was selected. This is because the angle between these lines is 90 degrees, so everything above this number also has been taken into account. However, if we enter less, then automatically SketchUp counts and the ones that are vertical are only selected. And then we can very fast to patch it. Now we have multiple edges selected and we would like to extrude them all at once. It can be done. Also very useful functions. You just need to properly rotate the camera to see the yellow symbols, and for example with the mouse or with the value from the keyboards you can add the length for the extrusion. If we want to give some direction, then it is best to draw this direction with some additional lines. We can select multi-extrude, and then we can extrude both of lines along our direction. So it is also very useful in everyday work.